Hey, everybody. Welcome to Talking Stuff, the Ohio State recruiting podcast brought to you by Lettermen Row and Buyers Automotive. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. Today's show is myself, Zack Carpenter, and Andrew Ellis, and we're doing things a little bit different. This is going to be an edition of The List, but rather than talking about one player that's high on the Ohio State recruiting board, we're going to talk about our picks for the top remaining targets for the Buckeyes in the class of 2022. So let's get to it. Okay, we're back. It's The List on Lettermen Row, but as I said at the onset of the show, this isn't the typical list where we would break down one player that's at the top of the very board for Ohio State or a must-get. This is the list of guys that we think are the biggest and most important remaining players in the class of 2022 for Ohio State. We each have a list of 9 guys that we have presented or have prepared. And we're just going to go down the list. We'll start at number 9, go up to number 1 because everyone loves that look, I got Spencer on the brain. Everyone loves that suspense.
That's like 3 podcasts in a row where you're messing your words up. I still got that list that I'm gonna. Speaking of lists, I have one in a Google Doc of the words that you keep making up. Or
yeah, well, I'm a believer in freedom of expression, Zach. I'm sorry that you're not. Sometimes
very buttoned up. You know, I love planning, so I'm always all right. Let's
I actually thought you'd appreciate that this episode of Talking Stuff presented by Buyers Auto, I actually gave you like a script, so to speak, or a game plan for what we're going to do. So I'm trying to work with you.
I did. You guys all know I'm a writer and a planner at heart, and I'm a behind the scenes type of guy. So I like having that prep work. Andrew, did you like having the prep work instead of having to go off the cuff of naming 9 guys like that?
I like having some prep work, but I also don't mind winging it from time to time. So I like it when things are mixed up. So,
well, let's start. Let's wing it. Let's mix it up. Wing it. Start. Zach, number 9 on your list. Who is it?
It's the list of lists. I start with Hero Canoe. I know. Are we going to list them all 9 right off the bat, or are we're going one by one and explanation after each one? See, this is the unscripted part.
I think we'll break it down a little bit. I mean, Hero Canoe, obviously, it's a player that Ohio State offered in the summertime. They really liked what they saw. 6'5", 290-pound defensive tackle, a 3-tech that is extremely quick. Obviously the Buckeyes are going to need a lot of help at defensive tackle. I think that as we go along this list, people are going to hear a number of defensive linemen, and Teddy, Andrew, and I both have defensive linemen also at number 9, but this is one of those moments where we have the same player selected. And Andrew, who is it?
I have Kenyatta Jackson, Florida defensive end, at number 9.
Yeah, same with me. I think that my list changed obviously in the last couple of days as I've been thinking about this. As I watched Ohio State play on Saturday, I like what they have depth-wise with some of the younger defensive ends. But I really think they need some explosive edge rushers at this point, and I think that Kenyatta Jackson has that type of upside, which is why he's on my list at number 9. Zach, number 8.
Number 8, I had Cam Dewberry. I think he's like 6'4" is what he's been measured at. I know he's listed as an offensive tackle last I saw it. I mean, from people I've talked to who are smarter about offensive line play than me, think that he could be a guard at the next level. And but I mean, if he is a tackle, Ohio State already has George Fitzpatrick in the full committed, and there's no real other bona fide offensive tackles other than Cam Dewberry still on the list because Keontae Goodwin, which broke me and Andrew's hearts for the number 1 guy we liked, is already firmly with Kentucky. Another guy I thought about putting at number 8 was Emil Wagner, especially because of the in-state factor of him being from Wayne. It just, to me, I think if there's no, I do think that Cam Dewberry has that type of presence to be worthy of being on this list. I know I can't remember what number you guys had him at, but
Andrew has him at number 8 with you. So Andrew, why Cam Dewberry as that guy?
It kind of goes along with what Zach said. He's kind of a versatile guy, tackle, guard type. I will say I think Ohio State was in a better spot with him late July compared to where they are now. Maybe I think the general thought was he may have ended his recruitment by now, but instead you still got Texas A&M and an official visit to Oklahoma coming up. So that's why I got him at number 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an argument to be made for multiple offensive linemen, but I'm operating under the pretense, and I know people on the internet have ridiculed me for it. I just think Ohio State's only going to take 3 offensive linemen, and so I don't have Cam Dewberry on my list. But I think that's not to say Ohio State doesn't want him or Ohio State wouldn't take him or Emil Wagner or anyone else. But I only have 1 offensive lineman on my list, and we'll get to that later. But for me, number 8 on my list is Chris McClellan, another defensive lineman, Oklahoma prospect, who, again, another guy I think we thought maybe would be committed by now. And a lot of the reason I have McClellan here is I just think that it's important for Ohio State to establish that if you're recruiting defensive linemen against Larry Johnson, you're going to lose. And I think that especially with Oklahoma's desire here to extend this recruitment and kind of play on this SEC vibe that they're now trying to sell people. I think it's important Ohio State comes out of that one with the win, because they were in a very comfortable driver's seat with him after his official visit. I think that they're still in the lead, but Florida and Oklahoma are fighting. And I think Chris McClellan's an important player. So let's move on. Number 7, Zach, who you got?
Yeah, this is the guy I probably agonized the most about how high. I knew he would be on the list, but I didn't know. When I initially went through it, I put some thought into which ones were on the list, and then I looked back through, and I was like, I don't know, number 7, Ernest Green. That's who I have, and I think, as I don't want to step on it too much on the guys that we're going to get to next, but I had mainly defensive players right at the top of the board. Ernest Green. I mean, I'll probably agree with whatever argument is made to have him higher on the list, because even though I think Ohio State, they have great talent in the interior line, but Donovan Jackson's five-star guy at guard. Ernest Green's a borderline 5-star who's gotten Donovan Jackson comparisons. And if they bring in Ernest Green, like, I'm just imagining a 3rd-year Donovan Jackson starting, a 2nd-year Ernest Green, and I feel like that really having that type of interior line presence really kind of with TreVeyon Henderson in the backfield really kind of opens up what Ryan Day wants to do philosophically of establishing the run game that leads to the passing game. So he absolutely should be on this list, and you probably make the argument that he could be higher than that. I had him too low.
Speaking of the passing game, Andrew, number 7 on your list as a player that would help that.
Yeah, so when I do these lists, like, I kind of look at it from 3 different viewpoints. Like, I look at positional need, I look at kind of mutual interest between the player and Ohio State, and then I just kind of look at the star power, the caliber of the player. Now, with number 7 on my list, Drew Aller, there's kind of an extra element to this with him being the best quarterback from the state of Ohio that we've seen in some time. And if he doesn't end up at Ohio State, Ryan Day is going to be facing him every year, whether it's in Columbus or in Happy Valley. So he is number 7 on my list. A month ago, I would have never expected to have a quarterback on here, but the Quinn Ewers thing happened, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think it's clear Ohio State's going to need a quarterback in this class. But for me, number 7 is Hero Canoe, who is the 3rd straight defensive lineman on my list. And I think it's just extremely important that Ohio State restock this front 4. Because you are losing so many defensive tackles. There was the expectation heading into the season that not only do you lose Tyreek Smith, but there was a lot of scuttlebutt about Zach Harrison and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and maybe those guys thinking about testing NFL waters. Maybe that changes based on their ineffectiveness in the first 2 weeks of the season. But you never know what happens from here on out. But I think it's clear Larry Johnson wants to restock that defensive line. I'm still operating under the pretense that you could see 5 total defensive linemen, and I think they have to get that many. So to me, it's Hero Canoe, who Ohio State believes has the potential to be a 5-star type player, and that's why he's on the list. Zach, number 6 for you is Drew Aller. Why?
I don't have too much to say that I haven't already said or that Andrew didn't just say a second ago. I mean, just like he said, if they don't get him, they're going against him every year, or at least for the next 2-3 years, whatever, with their number 1 Big Ten East rival or competitor, I would say. And to me, it also comes back to I haven't had him that high on the list just because to me, the quarterback dominoes resetting is with Quinn Ewers reclassifying to 2021. Drew Aller would reset those quarterback dominoes. And I think that's massively important going forward as they target 5-star guys in the next 2 cycles.
For you, Andrew, number 6 is a player that we've talked about a lot. He was on the list actually as one of Ohio State's must-get priorities in 2022. And again, if you've been watching Ohio State these first 2 weeks of the season, you know why. Who's number 6 for you?
Yeah, so I got Zion Branch at number 6. Not the top safety on my list here, spoiler alert, but the exact reason you said, they're the safety play this year. We saw the nosedive that's taken when Josh Proctor's not back there. He's clearly one of the top 2 guys that Kerry Combs and Ryan Day have kind of zeroed in on. I would say today's news with that coaching carousel starting to spin already, we'll see how that kind of factors in here with USC being maybe the presumptive leader, USC or Ohio State. But I know he's got that Clemson and Alabama visit still lingering out there. But yeah, he is number 6 on my list.
I like it. I think Zion Branch is a must get. That's why he was on, the singular focus of the list. For me, number 6 is another player who was on the singular focus of the list, and that is defensive lineman Omari Abor, who I think sometimes we stopped sort of talking about him. And I think maybe we're all guilty of this because those official visits happened at the first weekend of June, and it sort of feels like things have just stagnated. But Ohio State's remained in very close contact with Omari Abor. I know that, there's discussion about Eni White and Kenyatta Jackson and how all these pieces play together. I want, and this is what we talked about all day at Roosters on Lettermen Live on Monday, I think you need to have some dudes who are slightly unhinged at times on the field, and I like what I see out of Omari Abor in that role. Physically, 6'4.5", 250 pounds. He is college ready body wise. And I think to me, if you have a player like Kenyatta Jackson, who's more of a traditional edge rusher, maybe there's a little bit more physical development there, but Abor helps kind of quell that gap and is a college ready, come in, be physically ready to play college. So again, another defensive lineman for me, 4 straight of those, but that's why Omari Abor is there. Zack, number 5 for you is Kenyatta Jackson, who you have as your second defensive lineman. Why Kenyatta Jackson is that high up on your board?
Again, it comes back to some of the same stuff that you guys said. He's that explosive, long, explosive, traditional edge rusher that I think that Ohio State's going to need to be that big home run hitting playmakers, sort of like Zach Harrison has the potential to be. And he's a guy that I with another guy a little higher on my list. I debated back and forth between those two. He's just another guy that I probably could have had higher. I just think he's the difference maker as a pass rusher that they're going to need for the future of this defense.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's such a need for speed on the outside for Ohio State. I think that there's a case to be made for any of these guys being higher. Andrew, number 5 on your list is Hero Canoe, who we've already talked about a couple of times. Why do you have him so high?
Well, I mean, he's camped multiple times or worked out with Larry Johnson multiple times. I mean, you guys were at the camp setting and everybody was kind of blown away by him. But I just think with him, not being from the U.S., his ceiling is just through the roof. And he's just now kind of starting to tapping into his potential. And, I know Georgia and programs like that, Notre Dame, are very high on his list as well. But yeah, he's number 5 on my list, and his potential is just limitless.
Yeah, I think as we go closer to the top of this list, one of the things that plays into where I ranked people is who they're recruiting them against. And I think that it's important that Ohio State wins some of these national battles against the Georgias, against Notre Dame's, against Alabama, Clemson, et cetera. But to your guys' point earlier about Penn State, that's why I have Drew Aller at number 5 on my list. And I want to put a little asterisk by that. With the news that Clay Helton has been let go by USC, I'm going to just change it to Drew Aller / quarterback. And I don't know if maybe Devin Brown, the USC commit, becomes a player Ohio State looks at. I know I would if I were in their position. I thought he was great at the Elite 11. I really liked what I saw out of him. From Utah, Corner Canyon High School, plays a good schedule out there, is a very accurate kid. I think Aller obviously makes the most sense for a number of reasons. I think that there's going to be scuttlebutt about James Franklin to USC. How that plays into this, I don't know. But Ohio State is going after Drew Aller because they think he can play at Ohio State. He's an in-state quarterback, as you said. I think you got to go get him. I know that they wish they had known Quinn Ewers' plans a year ago. that would have made this a whole lot easier, and they wouldn't be trying to do this in the 11th hour. But that's why I have Drew Aller that high on my list. I think it's important for Ohio State to make sure that they firmly establish in the Midwest, if Ohio State wants a player from Ohio, they get him. And that's why I think it's so important to get Drew Aller. So let's move up. Number 4, we have a couple of guys. Zach and I, we both agree it's Zion Branch at number 4. Zach, why Zion Branch so high?
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking on what off you just said, winning those national battles. And I think that getting Zion Branch, this is probably the number 2 reason I would have him this high. You talked recently about Zion Branch and Zachariah Branch. Basically, I mean, you use the phrase package deal, which is usually like a faux pas when talking recruiting, but I mean, they're brothers, one class apart. So I think if you get Zion Branch, you most likely get one of the more dynamic offensive weapons in the country, potentially, Zachariah Branch. But the main reason I have him this high is what you guys spoke about the need for safety, the safety depth, safety help, and he's another explosive playmaker that, assuming that Ohio State gets this defense fixed and there's no schematic changes or anything like that throughout the season or the off season, if they're going to continue to play that one deep safety with cover 1, cover 3 schemes, I mean, to have a guy like Zion Branch is pivotal to have in that role.
Yeah, I think Zion Branch is as close a player combination to Jordan Fuller and Josh Proctor as you can get. And that's why I think he has to be this high on the board. I also love when Ohio State is able to go out and recruit players from winning programs. I think it's an important part of the puzzle. It's why I have Kenyatta Jackson on my list and not Eni White, because I think it's important for Ohio State to stay active in South Florida and make those inroads when you have the commitment from Ryan Turner, Kenyatta's teammate. I think there's all these little moving parts as you start to build a program that has feeder spots. And I think that staying active in Las Vegas, especially now with the USC thing, I mean, I don't think that unless USC loses Dante Williams, and I don't think he's going to stay as their head coach, I think they'll find someone else. But like when Larry Johnson was let go by James Franklin, for example, I think there's sometimes when new head coaches make a very bonehead decision. And I don't think that the new head coach would move on from Dante Williams. So I think that that's something to watch as we head into November and December. But to me, Zion Branch is a really great combination of what Ohio State's looking for at safety, and that cerebral kid who can really play that back free safety spot and be a game changer / eraser back there. So that's why I got him there. Andrew, who you got number 4?
I have Ernest Green at number 4. You guys touched on him a little bit earlier, but one of the top of the board offensive line targets right now. Powerhouse St. John Bosco program in California. I think he was supposed to visit this past weekend with his team, and they had a late Friday night game that prevented that from happening. I wonder if that's going to kind of work out in Ohio State's favor, because he's going to Georgia next weekend. I think that's the top competition. So if he goes and takes his official to Athens, then gets that Ohio State visit rescheduled down the road, maybe Ohio State can get the last shot or one of the later shots after Georgia. But he is number 4 on my list.
Yeah, and USC is another one in that mix for Ernest Green, who is my number 3 on the list is Ernest Green. Again, the St. John Bosco pipeline. The kid is 6'4.5", 330 pounds. He's an absolute mountain of a human. And what I love about Ernest Green is that every single play, Ernest Green looks like he's trying to hurt someone. And I think that if I want that out of an offensive lineman, and I think that sort of attitude is something Ohio State is sorely missing from its offensive line. They're great kids. They're physical. They're really obviously a proficient group, one of the best in the country. But I think you need sometimes that just road grader Mauler type, and that's what I see on Ernest Green. That's why he's number 3 on my list. You guys each have the same player at number 3 on yours. Who wants to take?
I can go ahead. So, when I've been putting my own recruiting boards together, like I had Pennsylvania's defensive end Eni White on my list way back when I first started putting it together, and then he had some comments about wanting to go far away from home, and then I just kind of started writing him off to the SEC. And then we know he visited Columbus over the summer, and it just seems like Larry Johnson has kind of helped to convince him that your home as a 4-3 edge rusher might be more beneficial than a 3-4 outside linebacker. So I think Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, but he is number 3 on my list. And 2 months ago, he wouldn't even have been on there probably.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I didn't really initially. I was going to have him around probably number 5 or number 6, but because I'm not as convinced that he can be a hand in the ground defensive end. I think seeing him play, I think he still fits that more 3-4 outside linebacker, which is what every other program except Ohio State seems to be recruiting him at. But it doesn't really matter what I think if Larry Johnson thinks that he can be, if he can translate to being that explosive, rangy edge guy. So I think he needs to be very high on this list with the ability that Ohio State believes he can have. But I still that 3-4 outside linebacker. I feel like he might fit that mold a little better. But
yeah,
and
go ahead.
One more thing with that, like if you're a 3-4 outside linebacker type or hybrid type like him, and you watch Georgia against Clemson and you watch what they were doing with their linebackers, I mean, that's got to be enticing for him. So I do kind of worry about Georgia and the SEC, but he's number 3 on my list as well.
Yeah, and again, the reason I don't I was back and forth between him and Kenyatta Jackson for that number 9 spot, because I know that physically they need to develop into what Ohio State wants them to be as far as a 4-3 edge rusher. So that's why he's not on my list. But I mean, he's a dynamic player, 5-star, nasty kid, really likes to hit people, arrives with bad intentions. I think I still have him as in the Ohio State class if we're doing a game of in or out, but I just don't think that I think that could change. I'm more worried about that changing with him than I am Kenyatta Jackson when it's just Ohio State and Oklahoma really for him. So because I agree. I think that Georgia thing, the Alabama thing, when you see the way Alabama uses Will Anderson and the way that they can point to these kids and say, this is who we want you to be. I think that does start to play into this as kids start to get closer to a decision. Number 2 on our list here, you guys have the same guy again, so I'll let you go. Who is it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's Xavier Wampa. Just watching his film, you're talking about a guy who plays angry and violent. I mean, that's a kid who he's gonna go all out, and I mean, he's probably the hardest hitting safety in the league in Madden. What was the hardest hitting safety in Madden though? What was
Greg Jennings? Darren Sharper.
Yeah, Darren Sharper. He's that. I think that sort of fits that bullet type that Ohio State's wanting. He's going to allow them to do things schematically that they want to do with this defense that I think that he would have been if in 2 years, if the game yet on Saturday would have been played 2-3 years from now, I think he would have been one of the guys being highlighted of flying all over the field. He's going to play. He's not going to play scared. He's going to play like a man. So I think he has to be this high.
And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Zack said. You know, he's a top of the board guy for Ohio State, Notre Dame. I think we've long thought it was going to be Ohio State or Notre Dame, but I do kind of wonder. He was just at Iowa last weekend. I do kind of wonder if a successful season for Iowa, maybe they can kind of creep into it. But yeah, I mean, he's without question top of the board target, whether you have him number 1, number 2, or somewhere up there.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Xavier, and I'll talk about it more in a second, but number 2 for me is Caden Curry, who is the 5th defensive lineman on my list, and a player, like, simply put, we've talked ad nauseum about Caden Curry, but I've said it over and over. If he was playing in Florida or playing in Texas or playing in California, I think he'd be ranked as a top 25 player in the country. His game film is incredible. His motor is incredible. His athleticism is underrated for a kid at 6'4.5", 6'5", 250 pounds. I don't care what position he plays. Similar, and I mean, Zack, we've talked about the Nick Bosa comparisons. You've talked about it with him. That to me is the upside. That's the ceiling, and I think that he's got that type of potential. I think he is the type of player Ohio State can build a defensive line around, simply because what he said with you after the official visit. If you put a kid like Caden Curry out there with Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimoloau, and then you put a Tyleek Williams or a Michael Hall next to him on the interior, you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of things you can do. And I just think from a culture fit, from the position fit, from how long Ohio State has recruited him, he's been the top of the board priority for the defensive line since March of 2020. Like you cannot miss on Caden Curry, because if you do miss on him, you're missing on him most likely to Alabama or Clemson or Oregon. I mean, Indiana's in that mix, but I just still I don't think Indiana's at that point yet where they're going to be able to beat those other schools for him. So I have him number 2 because I have Xavier Wampa number 1, and that was back and forth for me most of the time as we're sorting this out. But I just can't get over what I've seen out of Ohio State's safety play in the last couple of weeks, and for me, that's why Xavier Wampa has to be number 1. I don't know if he's as instinctive a player as Ian Branch is, like pre-snap, doing all that stuff. But I know that when the ball is in the air, Xavier Wampa is going to hit somebody and hit them hard, and he's going to be in the right spot. He's very smart, extremely physical, can play sideline to sideline. He's got a linebacker body and safety athleticism. And I just, again, similar to Caden Curry, they've recruited him so long. His relationships with Keon Graves, with CJ Hicks, with these kids is so good. I just feel like if you miss out on that, it is going to be one of those ones that bites you in the butt, whether he ends up at Notre Dame or Texas A&M or Iowa, who I agree. Now that he's seen them 2 weekends in a row, they got 6 interceptions at Iowa in the first 2 weeks of the season. They're trying, they've led the Big Ten in interceptions each of the last 4 years. They got a ball hawking defense, and I think that they're trying to really push and sell that, along with the opportunity to incorporate name, image, and likeness stuff as a hometown hero. And I think that any player in the country is going to listen to that. But I think Ohio State needs to be able to sit him down and say, you are the difference maker in this defense. And so that's why he's number 1 on my list.
Can I just hit the retweet button for everything you said about Caden Curry? Because, I mean, basically everything that you said, that's why I had him number 1 on my list. And I think Ohio State's proven that to him that he's their top of the board guy. And when I talked to him about his official visit, the big 3 is kind of what he called it, because he met with JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Larry Johnson on Sunday on the final day of his official visit. And I don't think it was like a huge pitch, like, come on, be the big 3. Like, that was kind of said, that label was said in passing, but now I can't get over that, of that being their title. Everything you said, I mean, imagining those 3 guys online and Mike Hall would be just, I mean, it's a scary defensive line to think about that isn't just going to be scary for Big Ten teams. It would be scary for college football playoff matchups. The versatility and the motor are what I always come back to with Caden, because, I mean, he's pretty relentless when it comes to just to his aggressiveness. Whether at 3 tech, his last 2 years, he's starting to go over defensive end, and even a little Mike linebacker he's playing now for his defense over there. I see him being a potential star down the road. And that motor, Larry Johnson, I swear that's like the number 1 thing that he loves in his defensive lineman, is because it's something you can't teach. And we've seen guys that Ohio State has kind of backed off on the recruiting trail because they don't have that innate ability, that natural motor. So again, I couldn't be much higher on Caden Curry. So I'm curious to hear why Andrew had him number 1. I'm sure it's probably a lot of the same stuff we said.
Yeah, I mean, he's number 1 on my list. I didn't even have to really put too much thought into it. He's the clear number 1 for me. Zack has a great update on Caden Curry on the website right now. And again, like Berm said, if he's playing in Georgia or Alabama or Florida, somewhere down there, I mean, he's a without question top 10 5-star caliber player. And there's a reason that Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama really won him. So he's number 1 for me. I was a little I just kind of penciled him in as a 3 tech. And then when I saw some of the photos of him from over the summer, he was a little smaller than I thought he was going to be. So whether he ends up as a 3 tech or an edge rusher or a Nick Bosa type, like you said, Berm, he's number 1 on my list.
Yeah, that's where I see him. I mean, I just see him ending up in that 6'4.5", 265-pound range as a guy that can just wreak havoc. And I look back over the Ohio State defensive line over the last handful of years, and there's obviously been great player after great player between Nick and Joey Bosa and Chase Young. But what they miss on this current defensive line is a player with the energy of Jonathan Cooper, someone that is simply going to go balls to the wall from snap to whistle every single play. And that's what Caden Curry will do, whether he's out on the edge or inside or standing up or playing fullback or playing baseball. The kid is an intense, relentless person. And I think you have to have that. And I think for Ohio State to continue to be competitive on the national stage, you have to have players who would chew their own foot off if it meant getting to the quarterback. And I think that he's that type of kid. And again, I think he's vastly underrated nationally. And I would have him number one on my board too, if the safety play wasn't so darn terrifying at Ohio State right now. So, especially knowing that Lathan Ransom is only going to be there one more year after. There's no way Lathan Ransom's playing 2 more years. So the importance of a guy like Xavier Wampa and Zion Branch, who I probably could have had 1 and 2 on this list, is just that much more paramount to me. Because, yeah, the Buckeyes are going to get Josh Proctor back next year, but then you have Proctor and the Ransom, who are both going to be gone after that. And then where do you go? So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of arguments. I'm interested, folks out there watching, listening, give us your comments and your personal list, and tell us what you think. But this is our list. Andrew, Zach, anything else that's that you want to explain away or give a thought on? What anything else?
No, not really. I think we're mostly on the same page. Maybe we just had some guys slotted a bit differently, but it's clear as day what the remaining needs are. You're looking at the trenches and you're looking at safety, and I guess quarterback now too. So it's been that way for a while.
One couple of things I wanted to ask. I know you've been pretty adamant that you think that Ohio State should take 4 offensive linemen. I know you said that in the past. I'm wondering if you're still of that school of thought, and that's why you didn't have more offensive linemen on the list. Or
I think they should take that many. Whether or not they're going to, I don't know. And I think and I wrote about it a few weeks ago. But this super senior situation is so weird because you just don't know who's going to come back. And now you add another player like Josh Proctor. There goes the scholarship for next year. I mean, it's great to get back an all Big Ten caliber athlete, but now you have one less spot. So there's all these moving parts. If this list was beyond 9, I probably would have Cam Dewberry 10, and I would probably even have Emil Wagner 11, because I think that there is a real need at Ohio State for true tackles. But I have Ernest Green at number 3 because I think that he can play tackle, and physically he doesn't need the development that someone like Emil Wagner does. And that's why I wouldn't have him on that immediate list. But I mean, Ohio State wants Emil Wagner. They would take him if he tried to commit today. So, I mean, that's all you really need to know. But as we look at this, I'm trying to be objective, and knowing that they have 14 commitments, talking to people I've talked to, I'm hearing 21, 22 guys in this class. And so things are going to get real tight, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions.
Let me say one more thing. If Keontae Goodwin shows up in Columbus for an official visit, we're probably going to have like an emergency meeting podcast to update our board. So we'll see if that ends up happening here sometime in the next few months.
Well, Zach's going to see Keontae Goodwin this weekend, so he'll get an update if that's going to happen. Do you want him to take like a picture of you, Andrew, and ask if Keontae is interested? Or
yeah, if you could do that, Zach, that'd be great. Maybe mail it to me and I can hang it up somewhere on my fridge or something. Maybe
we'll get you life-size posters. What are they're the fat heads?
Fat head, that'd be great. That'd be great. Like a 6 foot 8 inch fat head in my living room. That's all I need in life. So please.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it, other than Drew Aller, who's the one committed player that you would have on this list, and why is it Keontae Goodwin? I already knew the answer from you, Andrew. So I'm really excited to see him play. I mean, he should be a 5-star. He is that type of talent. So I mean, I remember seeing the video that I sent you of him. He's like 6'8", 300 pounds. So he's just looking like an absolute mountain. And you're just like, good Lord, that dude's an NFL player already.
Yeah, he's a freak. And I mean, there's a reason why he's everyone's number 1 offensive tackle, in Alabama, Clemson, all these other schools. But kudos to Kentucky for convincing him that the dead period was never going to end. Whatever. Hey, that's the end of this show, though. This has been Talking Stuff presented by Buyers Auto. This has been The List, also presented by Lettermen Row. But that's Andrew Ellis, Zack Carpenter. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. Thanks for watching, folks.